There's a photograph, just a chair. Wooden, slightly worn, pushed back from a table at an angle like someone just stood up. No person in the frame, no note, no context, just the chair. Most people shown this image feel something. A small, quiet pull in the chest, something in the neighborhood of sadness. Now here's another photograph. A bed, neatly made or maybe not, pillows at rest, sheets undisturbed, curtains half drawn, no person here either. People look at this one and feel, mostly nothing. Same absence, different object, completely different emotional weight. And here's the strange part, this isn't a Western thing or a cultural thing or a language thing. Show these two images to people across dozens of cultures with no shared mythology, no shared language, no shared funeral rites, and they'll consistently land on the same answer. The chair hurts more. Why does a piece of furniture haunt us? Or, and this is the better question, what does the chair know about us that we haven't admitted yet? The obvious explanation is symbolism. Chairs are for the living. Beds are for sleeping, and sleeping looks a lot like something else. So culturally, we've loaded the chair with presence and the bed with absence that's acceptable. That's the answer most grief counselors and cultural theorists will give you, and it's not wrong exactly. It's just not the whole thing. There's a technique in Gestalt therapy called, you'll have guessed this, the empty chair technique. A patient sits across from an empty chair and speaks to it, to a parent, to a version of themselves, to someone they never got to say the thing to. Fritz Perls developed it in the 1940s and therapists still use it today because it works. The emptiness of the chair apparently gives the mind permission to project presence. The absence becomes a container. Beds don't do this. Nobody has ever developed a therapeutic modality around an empty bed. So that's one data point. The chair is a stage, the bed is furniture. But that still doesn't explain why the response is cross-cultural and apparently instinctive, why it predates any individual's exposure to grief rituals or symbolic language. For that, you have to go somewhere a little older than culture. You have to go to the part of the brain that is very, very bad at finishing sentences. In 1927, a Soviet psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik noticed something odd about waiters. The waiters in a particular Viennese cafe could recall complex unpaid orders in perfect detail. The moment the bill was settled, the information evaporated. Paid orders vanished from memory. Unpaid ones stayed, vivid and present, until they were resolved. She ran experiments. She found it consistently. Interrupted tasks are remembered better than completed ones. The brain, it turns out, keeps a kind of open tab on unfinished things. An itch it cannot stop scratching. This is now called the Zygarnik effect, and it is not a quirk, it is infrastructure. Your brain allocates ongoing cognitive resources to incomplete situations. It holds them in a kind of active buffer, waiting for resolution that may never come. This is why you can't stop thinking about the argument you didn't finish or the email you started and closed without sending. The loop is open. The brain keeps the file running. Now look at the chair again. A chair pushed back from a table at an angle is an interrupted action. Someone was sitting. They stood. The posture of the chair implies motion, trajectory, a person mid-sentence. The scene is unresolved. The Zygarnik loop opens automatically without your permission. The bed doesn't do this. A made bed is a completed action. An unmade bed is also a completed action of a different kind. Rest happened. Rest ended. The loop closes itself. There's no implied interruption. No open file, nothing for the brain to keep running in the background. The chair is a sentence with no full stop. The bed is a paragraph that finished. And the brain, confronted with an open sentence, does what it always does. It waits. It holds the space. It keeps the person alive in the gap because the gap demands a resolution. That waiting feeling, that held breath, is what we call sadness when the person never comes back to finish the sentence. There's something else happening, and it's weirder. Chairs exist at the intersection of two states, occupied and unoccupied. They are structurally a promise of a body. A bed can exist independently of a person. It's a platform, a surface, a room feature. But a chair's entire design rationale is the human form. Its dimensions are calibrated to knees, backs, arms. It leans slightly, it cups slightly, it holds the approximate ghost of a sitting person in every proportion. This is not nothing. The brain processes objects in relation to the actions they afford, a concept psychologists call affordance perception. You look at a chair and your motor cortex quietly rehearses sitting. You look at a handle and your hand pretenses for gripping. You don't decide to do this. It just happens, automatically, below the level of conscious thought. So when the chair is empty, you're not just perceiving an absence. You're perceiving the failure of an expected action. Your brain cued the sitting. Nobody sat. The prediction error fires. And prediction errors in the brain's emotional accounting system register as something between unease and grief, depending on context. Beds have affordances too, obviously. But the affordance of a bed, lying down, losing consciousness, disappearing into sleep, is already a kind of absence. The body in a bed is not fully present in the social sense. We don't have conversations in beds. We don't build relationships across beds. The bed is where presence goes to pause. The chair is where presence performs. This is why state funerals leave chairs empty rather than beds. Why we hold a place at the table rather than keeping a pillow. Why the missing person's chair at a wedding reception communicates something that no other empty object in the room can. The chair is a social contract. The empty chair is a broken one. And we are, underneath everything, creatures who cannot stop flinching at broken contracts. Here's the part nobody really talks about. We've established that the brain holds open tabs on unresolved things. We've established that chairs imply interrupted presence in a way beds don't. But there's a third layer, and it's the one that actually keeps you up at night. The photograph. Not just the chair, the photograph of the chair. A photograph is a completed moment presented to you in an uncompleted moment. It is, by definition, always already past. The person who stood up from that chair has been gone since the shutter closed, and yet the chair is still pushed back at that angle. The interruption is permanent. Frozen. The loop can never close because the resolution exists in a time you cannot access. Photographs of empty chairs are documents of a very specific category of loss, the loss of something that was interrupted and never resumed. Not death, exactly. Not simply absence. Interruption. The conversation that got paused and then the universe just didn't pause with it. This is, incidentally, why grief is so neurologically exhausting. The brain keeps the file open. It keeps allocating resources to the resolution. It keeps sending the query and receiving no response. And it does this not because it's broken. It does it because for almost all of human evolutionary history, the open loop was the right call. The person who left usually came back. The interrupted thing usually resumed. Keeping the file open was the adaptive move. It's only recently, in evolutionary terms, basically this morning, that we've had to contend with losses that are categorical. Final, where the loop genuinely never closes, and the brain, running ancient software on a modern problem, just keeps waiting. The chair is still pushed back. The brain is still holding the space. The file is still open. This is what grief actually is, at the substrate level, not an emotion, a computational error, a prediction that the universe refuses to correct. So, why does the empty chair hurt more than the empty bed? Because the chair implies someone mid-sentence. Because your motor cortex cued a sitting that never happened. Because chairs are social contracts and empty ones are breached ones. Because the brain files interrupted things under pending and never gets the notification that the case is closed. But here's the thing. None of that is really an explanation. It's a description of mechanisms. And mechanisms don't answer the question underneath the question, which is, why does any of this matter? Why did we build a nervous system so exquisitely tuned to other people that a photograph, a rectangle of light, can reach into the chest and squeeze something? The answer is probably that we had to. That somewhere in the long, difficult project of becoming human, we made a deal with each other. Presence matters. Interruption is noticed. The empty place at the table will be held. The chair hurts because we're wired to notice when someone should be here and isn't. That wiring is also called love, depending on which way you're looking at it. And maybe the most honest thing you can say about grief, the thing evolutionary psychology and bereavement science both point toward in their different vocabularies, is that it's the price of admission. You get the presence. You get the loop opening. You get the prediction, the rehearsal, the motor cortex quietly getting ready for someone to sit down. And sometimes the chair stays empty. And the brain keeps the file open. And that, for now, is the best it can do.